The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Paul Denning, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from current issues of the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. This is from Saturday and Sunday, June 20th and 21st. Cayuga Island last saw testing 2 decades ago. DEC had designated island's western end a Class N site. There was a period of time, decades ago now, when state and federal environmental regulators were paying attention to contamination found beneath the ground on the western end of Cayuga Island in the city of Niagara Falls. Until the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation resumed testing in the area last fall, the attention waned for roughly 2 decades. As has now been widely reported, DEC investigators returned to the island's western end in October after an engineering company hired to perform waterline work on West Rivershore Drive reported encountering foul odors while taking soil borings in the right-of-way. Test results returned in December showed several contaminants exceeding the agency's screening levels for residential settings. The DEC confirmed, in response to questions from the Niagara Gazette, that before it started its latest sampling efforts, the last time the state agency completed an investigation on the island was 1995. The same year, it was testing designated the island's western end as a Class N site. By the agency's own definition, Class N sites are deemed to require no further action at the time of their designation. As with any such designation, the DEC cautions that the amount of information provided for Class N sites is highly variable, not necessarily based on any DEC investigation, sometimes of unknown origin, and sometimes is many years old. Due to the preliminary nature of this information, significant conclusions or decisions should not be based solely upon this summary, the DEC's description for Class N sites notes. When asked why no further testing was done on Cayuga Island between 1995 and this past October, the DEC said, as a, quotes, matter of standard practice, the agency does not further investigate sites designated as Class N. Testing history. The Cayuga Island page on the DEC's Environmental Remediation Database notes that prior to 1930, the island's western end was extended by about 250 yards into the Niagara River through the placement of fill-containing industrial materials. The database also notes that from 1958 to 1962, the western end was widened again by the placement of fill and industrial material reportedly sourced from several private companies, including Carborundum, Union Carbide, Hooker Chemical Corporation, Olin, and Pittsburgh Metallurgical. According to the DEC database, the site is contaminated with mercury, lead, BHCs, and other organic chemicals, with most of the materials found in the subsurface soil. Records compiled by the DEC itself or in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection, show state and federal environmental regulators were alerted to the potential presence of chemical contaminants on the island's western end as far back as the late 1970s. In a 1978 questionnaire issued amid heightened national attention over Love Canal, several companies with a history of chemical production and manufacturing in the falls, including Olin, Hooker, and Carborundum, identified Cayuga Island as a place where they sent industrial and hazardous wastes. Following the island's placement on a federal list of hazardous waste sites, additional investigation of potential contamination took place in the early 1980s through soil borings, soil samples, and the installation of wells. In 1985, the DEC, EPA, and the U.S. Geological Survey issued a joint report confirming the presence of toxic chemicals on the island, while identifying the site as probably having major potential for contaminant migration into the nearby Niagara River. While the report concluded contaminants were present in the groundwater in significant concentrations, regulators decided to continue monitoring the site to confirm the extent and rate of the potential contaminant migration. The report deemed the potential contaminant migration for the Niagara River as indeterminable. Following additional testing in the area in the 1990s, the residents whose yards were found to have subsurface soil contamination were advised against disturbing the contaminated soil by digging or excavating. The site remediation page notes that in a few instances, contaminants were found in surface soil and garden soil at concentrations that might pose a concern if the residents were repeatedly exposed to them. Quotes, in these instances, the residents were advised on how they might minimize their exposures to surface or garden soils, the DEC noted. In response to questions from the newspaper last week, the state agency acknowledged the issuance of the advisory in light of previous sampling. The agency referred all health-related questions to the New York State Department of Health. Current testing. The DEC is now engaged in a sampling plan involving the collection and testing of surface soil samples at up to 4 locations on private properties on the island. The agency's investigation will also include the collection and testing of sub-slab soil vapor and indoor air samples to determine if chemicals underground are entering the indoor air of a building through basements, crawl spaces, or slab, a process called soil vapor intrusion. Water samples will also be taken from homes with sump pumps. The DEC anticipates completion of the tests and release of the results in the spring. Local and state officials, including Falls Mayor Robert Restano and State Assemblyman Angelo Morinello, Republican Niagara Falls, are urging residents to be patient while the testing process plays out. Quotes, the New York State DEC is on this project, and I am sure they will do all they can to attend to what is there and have remediation of what is there, Restano told the newspaper. Local environmental attorney Kristen Civiletto, author of Thundering Waters, The Toxic Legacy of Niagara Falls, described the decades-long delayed response from state and federal environmental regulatory agencies to the Cayuga Island situation as alarming and inexcusable. Quotes, The state and federal agencies claimed they did not have enough information, but they knew enough, and what they did know was alarming, Civiletto said. Instead of remediating or evacuating families, NYSDEC and the state of New York allowed people to either build homes or continued living in these homes. Those families had no idea that some of the most toxic substances ever invented by mankind were in the soil or groundwater below their homes. It is inexcusable. This type of wrongful conduct is repeated over and over in Niagara Falls. Civiletto said the Cayuga Island situation follows a troubling historical trend in the falls, where people and pets have often received secondary considerations while polluters were, quotes, given a pass. Even when polluters were forced to address their poisons, it took decades, and usually only after the federal and state government filed a lawsuit to force them to pay for remedial efforts, she said. The people of Niagara Falls are still paying the price for the widespread destruction of this city by the chemical industry. Next article is a staff report. Clarence man charged with killing wife. Victim killed in Sheridan Drive home early Thursday morning. A Clarence man is being held without bail after being arrested in the death of his wife early Thursday morning. Erie County District Attorney Michael Keene said Michael C. Brown, 55, of Clarence, was arraigned Thursday before Clarence Town Court Justice Jonathan Hickey on one count of second-degree murder, Class AI felony. About 2:55 a.m. Thursday, Erie County Sheriff's Office deputies responded to a residence on the 9100 block of Sheridan Drive in Clarence after receiving a 911 call. The victim, a 50-year-old female, was pronounced deceased at the scene. Brown is accused of intentionally causing the death of his wife. He is scheduled to return on Monday for a felony hearing. He was held without bail. If convicted of the charge, Brown faces a maximum sentence of 25 years to life in prison. Keene commended the Erie County Sheriff's Office Investigative Services Unit for their work in this ongoing investigation. The case is being prosecuted by Assistant District Attorney Frank Strano of the Homicide Bureau and Assistant Chief Rebecca Fioravanti of the Domestic Violence Bureau Special Victims Unit. Next article is written by Mark Scheer of the Gazette. Primary politics in play. Working Families reinforces its support. Legislator defends attempt at ballot line. One race in the upcoming primary election has ties to a statewide dispute over what Working Families party officials call efforts by Republican and conservative candidates to hijack the party's ballot lines. The primary race in question will play out on Tuesday in the Niagara County Legislature's 13th district race in Lockport, where endorsed Democrat and Working Families Party candidate Jocelyn Welton will face incumbent county lawmaker and endorsed conservative and Republican Rick Abbott in a bid to obtain what could be a key third-party ballot line in advance of the November general election. In a June 9 letter, Working Families Party chapter chairperson Tom Ruley reminded party's members that the party has endorsed Welton in the race, while warning members of, quotes, party raiding tactics employed by Abbott and Lockport Republicans who support him in an effort to put him on the party's line for the general election. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Candidates endorsed by the Working Families Party complete an extensive application and screening process where they are evaluated by WFP members, Rowley wrote in his letter. Through this process, the WFP endorsed Jocelyn Welton. Jocelyn best represents our progressive values and vision and will stand up for all of Lockport's working families. Formed in 1998, the Working Families Party is considered a progressive-leaning minor political party. It was formed with support from labor unions and advocacy groups like Citizen Action of New York and the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now. The party's policy agenda includes support for increasing the minimum wage, expanding public education, providing workers with paid sick leave, Medicare for all, progressive taxation, and environmental reform. Many of the party's preferred agenda items, including universal Medicare and minimum wage hikes, are traditionally opposed by conservative and Republican candidates. Abbott is among a group of endorsed conservative or Republican candidates across New York who are running primary races against opponents like Welton who have formal endorsements from the Working Families Party. Abbott noted that he has appeared on ballots as the Working Families Party candidate in the past 4 elections, adding that he has a long and proud background of supporting union positions on issues like fair wages for his entire political career. While adding additional ballot lines is traditionally viewed as an advantage during general elections, Working Families Party leaders, including Ruley, are being more aggressive this year in highlighting so-called, quotes, ballot hijacking. Excuse me. Ruley called Welton the better candidate, quotes, by far. Rick Abbott and other Lockport Republicans are pretending to be Working Families Party members to steal a ballot line from our party's endorsed candidate. Abbott stands against everything our party stands for, Ruley said. Welton, a local educator, said, unlike her opponent, she supports many of the same principles shared by the Working Families Party, including living wage jobs and expanded health care opportunities for residents. Quotes, my opponent aligns with and is endorsed by the Conservative and Republican parties, whose platforms are very different from the WFP platform, Welton said. My opponent is only interested in snagging WFP voters in November, not in representing them. If elected, I will work hard to address the issues that affect working families, including affordability, energy costs, health care, and quality public education, she added. As a legislator, I will prioritize living wage jobs and support the tourism and agricultural sectors. I will work for the people, not for special interests. Abbott noted that he originally ran as a Democrat with the party's support and only joined the Republican Party after a falling out with Democratic Party leadership, including the party's current chair, former Lockport Alderwoman Anita Mullane. Abbott encouraged those who doubt his sincerity to check his work and voting history, which includes support for securing back wages for General Motors union members, including more than 20,000 Delphi retired employees and 25 years of service as an elected union official with the state's Public Employee Federation, or PEF. He also served on the statewide Labor Management Council and was a convention delegate. He accused his opponents, including those representing the Working Families Party and Democratic Party leadership, of distorting or outright lying about his stance on several issues, including those related to union matters, on social media. I've always been for a fair day's work and for a fair day's share for workers, and I think my work history shows that, he said. I think I've done a good job representing the city of Lockport and my district, and I think I've done a good job representing the people, he added. Abbott also said he believes the choice in any race, whether they involve Working Families Party or Democratic or Republican or any other party candidates, should be left to the voters. This is a democracy, he said. You do have a choice. He also said he's not interested in putting party politics over constituent needs. I want to work and deal with people who are productive and work for change in the community, and you need a seat at the table to do that, he said. Niagara County Democratic Party Committee Chair Anita Mullane said there are around 100 registered Working Families Party member voters in Lockport. A list obtained by the Democrats shows many of them have ties to Abbott or Lockport Republicans, including his son and daughter-in-law, and 4 others with the last name Abbott. Mullane said the list also shows the wife of Republican Niagara County Judge John Ottaviano, excuse me, and family members of Lockport City Attorney and Niagara County Public Defender David Blackley have registered with the Working Families Party. Mullane said it's not the first time Abbott has attempted to grab the minor party line in an election. She said he did the same thing when she ran against him in Lockport in 2015. Quotes, he's changed parties more in his history than we flipped out cars. And my dad owned a car dealership, she said. It's a ploy to win an election. They don't really stand for anything. What are their values? Because the party values are different. Abbott acknowledged some of his family members are registered Working Families Party voters. However, he said, those family members are also members of unions who have been registered with the Working Families Party for years. As to the party's endorsement process, Abbott said he didn't finish it because the party's questionnaire asked him to pledge to do things he wasn't prepared to do, including not seeking endorsements from other parties, including local conservative or Republican committees. I stopped at question 3, Abbott said, adding that he does not agree with the party's all or nothing stance when it comes to seeking endorsements. I think I'm a bona fide candidate for the party, he said. They are complaining now, but I've already been elected 4 times as a Working Families Party member. I was born and raised Catholic, but if I don't agree with all the Catholic teaching, I'm still a Catholic, he added. Because I'm now 100% in, does that make me not a Catholic? I don't believe it does. Both Republicans and Democrats have for decades supported so-called spoiler candidates on Working Families Party lines, with many of the candidates collecting enough voter signatures to qualify for ballot placement and many of them failing to actively campaign. The more vocal stance taken this year by Working Families Party representatives follows the December signing by Governor Kathy Hochul of New York's anti-spoiler law, which grants political parties the opportunity to expel members they contend are not true party candidates and who do not follow the party's principles. The statewide Working Families Party has formed a committee to field complaints that could support legal action surrounding enrollment challenges to candidates who are only pretending to support the Working Families Party for political purposes. Earlier this month, the Working Families Party filed a lawsuit against 20 of its own members in pursuit of their, quotes, disenrollment. On June 8th, a state Supreme Court justice in Rockland County ordered the removal of Working Families Party-enrolled voters from the party, finding they were not in line with the party's principles. Next article from Heidi Truschell Light. Wilson's Leon Festival, bigger than ever this year. Features Santa, street fair, and more. The Wilson Leon Festival, a halfway to Christmas celebration, will fill the village of Wilson with more than 75 vendors today, along with a parade, beer tent, and bands. Mayor Greg Martin said the event attracted 2,000 to 3,000 people last year. It runs at the same time as the regional Wilson Youth Soccer League tournament taking place at the high school grounds. We've worked closely with the soccer club to facilitate things for the families to enjoy, Martin said. This is one of the largest tournaments around, from youth soccer to U19 teams, with people coming in from Rochester and all over. We facilitate a bus so people don't have to give up their parking spot at the school. The festival opens at 11 a.m. with a street vendor fair that Martin said will feature crafters, clothing, and other popular items. Food trucks will include Greenleafs on the Go, Bond's Bus and Bites, M&T Barbecue, and the Roast Beast. Drink vendors include OMG Slushies, Pour Decisions, 716, and The Perfect Pour, offering lemonades, energy drinks, teas, wine slushes, and more. Santa, played by Dave Giambria, will be present from noon to 2 p.m. with an elf. The beer tent opens at 5 p.m. with an America's 250 parade going down Lake Street beginning at 6 p.m. Featured band Double Barrel will take the stage from 7 to 10 p.m. Musician Kevin King said the band covers hits of 70s, 80s, and 90s, featuring Lynyrd Skynyrd, Yes, Chicago, Stone Temple Pilots, Metallica, and Weezer. Art Park's Fairy House Festival returns. The 16th annual Art Park Fairy House Festival is taking place in Art Park's Lower Park. This was on the other day. This year's theme, Under the Sea, takes its inspiration from the waters of the stunning Niagara River. Guests will be greeted with bubbles, misters, and fairies scampering and drifting in like a tide from hidden places. Interactive making spaces, face painting, and a tea tent are just some of the under-the-sea wonders waiting. Fairy houses will be in the woods, and kelpie, fish, and mer masks can be made under the picnic shelters. Mix up a potion and maybe a fairy will appear, or create your own fairy house to welcome the fae. The mythic marketplace will be featured. All through the day, visitors will experience lyra performances, Sally Andra roaming with the sea, playing the violin, as well as Lorna MacDonald and Catherine Ben Berquist at Storytelling Place in the Woods. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. This is written by Robert Creenan. Project WITT looks to bring positive affirmations home. Program helps students, teachers feel better about themselves, looking to involve parents. Having helped improve the attitudes of Niagara Falls students the past 4 years, Project WITT is now looking to work with parents to help expand its welcoming environment at home. Created by Reverend Eugene Copland, the organization WITT, Wisdom in Troubled Times, looks to teach kids how to treat others differently with their words. Its Speak Life Twice program goes into classrooms and has students give positive affirmations to themselves and others. Because their language has changed and they see themselves, our girls are queens or guys are kings, Copland said, we create an atmosphere where they are celebrated, not tolerated. Project WITT has 5 volunteers who go through the Abate, Gaskill, Lafayette, Maple Avenue, and Cataract schools in the Niagara Falls district, and 5 for the Math Science Technology Prep School in Buffalo. They go into the schools for 3 hours once a week during lunch periods so that students do not miss any academic time. Through the program, simply changing students' language to be more positive, it has helped to bring those who may have been self-harming or suicidal out of those dark places. Quotes, all of our kids are hearing is negativity, complaining about this, complaining about that, constantly complaining when it comes to our classrooms, Copeland said. Many of them are hearing for the first time words of life. I can make it. I will make it. Copland noted that getting the community involved with the sessions is important, having received complaints about the lack of parent involvement. The group has already started working with Buffalo parents at Mount Olive Baptist Church on Delavan Avenue. They're understanding you got to watch what you're saying to their child, Copland said. Their sessions have even included teachers, principals, and other district staff as part of their professional development. Copland said they have seen the same changes in attitudes in the staff members, the same way kids have changed. One method they use, called the love seat, has someone sit in a chair and everyone else shares what they love about them, whatever it may be, finishing with a round of applause for everyone. When male teachers took part in the exercise, some would break down in tears afterward. I'd ask them why, and the answer is always the same, Copland said. Quotes, I never heard anyone tell me these words before. I didn't know you felt this way about me. The program was also recently involved with a suicide prevention event in Sanborn, a Juneteenth celebration at the Doubletree Hotel in Niagara Falls, and was asked to come into Niagara Charter School in Wheatfield. It's becoming a movement in Buffalo schools, but really here in Niagara Falls, we really want to proliferate it, Copland said. Next article written by Rick Pfeiffer. Progress on Main. Mayor says Bridge District properties are moving in the right direction. Mayor Robert Restaino told members of the city's Urban Renewal Agency Board of Directors recently that $40 million in private investment has now been committed to Main Street redevelopment. The mayor's comments came as part of an update on efforts by the agency to revitalize what has been dubbed the Main Street Bridge District, following the Urban Renewal Agency's acquisition of 39 properties and the Rapids Theater in the downtown corridor. Last month, a closely divided Niagara Falls City Council approved a waiver of property and school taxes for the properties formerly owned by Blue Cardinal Capital. The properties are located in and around Main Street and were purchased out of bank foreclosures by the NFURA in October 2024. They include the landmark Gents Building. Restaino told the Urban Renewal Agency board that an ad hoc committee made up of representatives from the city's Urban Renewal Agency, Empire State Development, the Niagara County Economic Development Center, and Niagara University has been reviewing applications from developers looking to purchase the properties. Earlier this month, the committee selected one of the largest independent concert promoters across upstate New York to take over the Rapids Theater. Concert promoter Chris Ring, and restaurateur Dale Siegel were tapped as the new operators of the Main Street Venue and Events Center. Restaino said city lawyers were working to close on the property transfer so that Ring and Siegel can begin work on revitalizing the venue. The theater is reportedly in need of $1.5 million in immediate stabilization repairs to its roof to secure the structure. City economic development officials told the NFURA board that the new owners were hoping to reopen the Rapids this fall. 11 of the 39 properties are reported to be, quotes, under development or contracted out, representing the $40 million private investment commitment. The full transfer of 4 properties, originally designated to developers in October, has been completed. The closing for the preferred developer of the former Gents Building, 1708 Main Street, whose principals are architect James Baptiste and realtor Jason Yachts, is expected to close soon. Baptiste and Yachts are planning to convert the longtime Falls department store into 30 market-rate apartments. Restaino said the Niagara County IDA and Niagara Orleans Land Bank have acquired grant funding necessary to begin working on emergency stabilization efforts for about a half dozen of the Main Street properties. These properties are reportedly in need of new roofs and other structural reinforcement. The mayor said that work should begin shortly. We are looking to stabilize these buildings so the developers are not stretched by repairs, Restaino said. None of these buildings has survived our last 40 years of winter well. All of these buildings are challenged, very challenged. And our long game is to have the developers concentrate their investments into creating a climate for more development. The mayor told NFURA board members that the current economic environment is difficult for developers and that the agency is offering the Main Street properties, quotes, below market rate. Quotes, we're not highballing any of these properties, Restaino said. We want the developers to put their money into development. Next article is a staff report. Man sent to prison in cyber stalking case involving local woman. Daniel Richter has already served time in prison for same crime. A former Niagara County man who has already served time in federal prison for cyber stalking a Western New York woman has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for the same crime. Daniel Richter, 47, of Middle Island, was sentenced by U.S. District Judge John Sinatra, Jr., to 5 years in prison for cyberstalking. He had pled guilty to the charge in February. Investigators with the Niagara County Sheriff's Office and agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation took Daniel Richter, 45, into custody in an Amherst hotel room on March 27, 2024. It was the latest arrest in a series of stalking and cyberstalking convictions for Richter. Investigators said that Richter in 2002 sent, quotes, bizarre emails to and followed a victim that he had become acquainted with at the University at Buffalo. Then, according to investigators, in 2007, Richter started sending postcards, quotes, with strange messages to the victim and leaving harassing voicemail messages on her work phone. In April 2008, Sheriff's Office investigators arrested Richter and charged him with fourth-degree stalking. Richter pleaded guilty to the charge and was sentenced to pay a fine. A Niagara County court judge also issued an order of protection that barred Richter from any contact with his victim. Investigators said a decade later, in 2018, Richter again began sending, quotes, unwanted communications via phone calls and emails to the same victim. Federal authorities arrested him, and in September 2020, he was convicted of interstate communication of threat to injure. Richter was sentenced to serve 2 years in federal prison for that conviction. In December 2023, federal agents said Richter was released from supervision after completing his sentence. Investigators said Richter immediately made attempts to contact his victim. Between December 25, 2023, and February 6, 2024, the victim said she received approximately 94 voice messages from Richter. Between February 6, 2024, and his arrest on March 27, 2024, Richter also sent more than 600 emails to the victim, which, according to investigators, included, quotes, incoherent rambling and sexual and or threatening comments directed at the victim. Assistant U.S. Attorney Franz Wright, who was handling the federal case, said between December 24, 2023 and March 27, 2024, Richter sent hundreds of threatening and sexual emails to the victim's personal email address. He threatened not only the victim, but members of her family as well. For instance, over a 2-day period in February 2024, Wright said Richter sent more than 50 email messages to her personal email address, including one email mentioning her son by name. He also sent multiple emails and or Google voicemails to the woman on an almost daily basis, which became more threatening as time progressed, including a threat to kill her. Richter was located by law enforcement agents at a hotel in Amherst after flying to Buffalo from Los Angeles. Investigators said in Richter's hotel room they found a photograph of the victim's contact information, a ski mask, and hair dye. Next article is from Staff Reports. New exhibits unveiled at Niagara Falls State Park. Voices of the Falls and Above the Roar, located at Visitors Center. 2 new attractions have opened at the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Welcome Center in Niagara Falls State Park. Voices of the Falls and Above the Roar allow visitors to experience Niagara Falls through diverse perspectives and cutting-edge technology. The $4.4 million Voices of Falls is a permanent interactive exhibit that explores the past, present, and future of Niagara Falls in the voices of those that have been part of its history. Featuring first-person perspectives, historical narratives, artifacts, hands-on interactive and video presentations, the nearly 5,000 square foot exhibit highlights the cultural, environmental, and personal connections that have formed the nation's oldest state park. Stories from the indigenous who first inhabited the land to the Underground Railroad to the tragedy of Love Canal, as well as the flora and fauna of the park, are included and will provide visitors with a richer view of the park beyond the waterfall. Additional elements of the project include outdoor models, a lenticular mural, and signage. The material covered throughout the exhibit is consistent with the principles of New York State Parks' Our Whole History initiative. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Gazette on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. I am especially grateful for our partnership with the Seneca Nation, Tuscarora Nation, and Underground Railroad collaborators whose contributions helped to bring these stories to life. State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Commissioner Kathy Moser said, "By sharing a more complete and inclusive history, these exhibits ensure that visitors gain a deeper understanding of the people, cultures, and events that shaped New York and our nation." Voices of the Falls was designed by Haley Sharp Design of the UK and Toronto and fabricated by Buffalo's Hadley Exhibits. Above the Roar is a fully immersive, multi-sensory virtual reality experience that takes participants on a thrilling journey around the most powerful waterfall in North America. Excuse me. Through exclusive aerial footage, motion-enhanced seating, and immersive sound, participants will soar along the U.S. side of the Niagara River, just above the rapids, and then over the American, Bridal Veil, and Horseshoe Falls, before gliding through the gorge and plunging into the depths below. There, under the water, they will encounter 7 species of fish that are native to the river before returning to the brink of the American Falls and ending back inside the Welcome Center. Quotes, "Above the Roar offers a completely new way for people to experience Niagara Falls as part of their visit to the park," said Derek Zwicky, Chief Operating Officer of Delaware North Parks and Resorts. "We are proud of our partnership with New York State Parks and thrilled that Delaware North could bring this attraction to life as another way for visitors from around the globe to experience Niagara Falls State Park." Delaware North worked with MDSX, an award-winning experiential design and media production firm. Working with MDSX, we used cutting-edge virtual reality content to create a perspective that has never been accessible to the public. A cinematic, awe-inspiring journey that is as emotional as it is exhilarating. Every moment is designed to bring guests closer to the scale, power, and beauty of Niagara Falls in a way that feels immediate and unforgettable, Zwicky said. These installations complete the 28,000 square foot visitor center that was opened by Governor Kathy Hochul in December 2023. The Welcome Center features glass walls and a low roof to maximize views and connections to the falls. It includes new ticketing and information desks, new concession spaces, restrooms and associated support spaces, a rooftop PV array, special patterned glass to prevent bird impacts, green roof elements, and a separate restroom building. Enhanced site amenities include new accessible paths, native plantings, and wayfinding elements. Our next article is from the opinion page. This is from independent living person Douglas Uziak. The headline, "Is it time for you to call the shots?" Mr. Uziak is the retired chief executive officer of Western New York Independent Living, Inc., family of agencies, which empowers individuals with disabilities to participate fully in society. For the past year and a half, we have watched federal disability programs be defunded, stripped of authority, and weakened through the chaotic dismantling of our country's support systems. Programs and services have been eliminated with little meaningful public process, leaving millions of people with disabilities and their families confused, frightened, and wondering what comes next as vital rights, supports, and protections continue to erode. These protections did not happen by accident. They were not the product of political generosity or passing partisan priorities. They were built brick by brick through decades of advocacy and hard-fought activism by people with disabilities and those who stood beside them. In the early 1800s, care for people with disabilities depended largely on family members or private charitable organizations. While some individuals with visible disabilities were exploited in, quotes, freak shows, displayed as curiosities for public entertainment, others, because of physical or psychiatric disabilities, were placed in poorhouses or almshouses with little hope for independence or humane treatment. 19th century advocates fought to replace neglect with education and more humane systems of care. Schools for the deaf and blind were established, alternative communication systems were developed, and reformers pioneered new approaches for people with psychiatric disabilities. Following the Civil War, disabled veterans and their allies successfully lobbied for expansive pension systems, national health care networks, domiciliary care facilities, and vocational programs designed to support wounded veterans returning home. By the early 20th century, growing national concern for people with disabilities led to the development of community rehabilitation centers focused on improving independence and opportunity. Public figures such as Helen Keller encouraged communities to support these efforts, helping expand educational programs, vocational training, and assistive technologies. After World War II, disabled veterans once again pushed the country forward, advocating for research and rehabilitation centers that could advance assistive technology and provide training in everything from homemaking to industrial skills so veterans could successfully return to the workforce. Excuse me. Like-minded veterans organized groups such as the Paralyzed Veterans of America and the Blind Veterans Association, joining forces with national disability organizations and the Veterans Administration to help create what became known as the Barrier-Free Movement. Their advocacy led to national standards for accessible buildings and facilities, and ultimately helped secure passage of the Architectural Barriers Act of 1968, which sought to eliminate physical design barriers that prevented people with disabilities from accessing employment and public life. The success of disabled veterans inspired the broader civilian disability community to establish its own national network of rehabilitation and advocacy programs. Under the leadership of individuals such as Mary E. Schweitzer, disability services expanded across the country. After Brown v. Board of Education ended school segregation, public schools slowly began opening their doors to children with significant intellectual disabilities. Educational programs increasingly focused on skill development and inclusion, eventually leading to the Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975, which guaranteed children with disabilities a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. Encouraged by the broader civil rights movement, people with disabilities turned their focus toward community inclusion and equal access, fighting to eliminate architectural, communication, transportation, and vocational barriers. In 1963, mental health advocates celebrated the passage of the Community Mental Health Act, legislation that inspired a new era of community-based mental health care. In 1974, advocates also succeeded in eliminating the last so-called ugly laws, which had allowed police to arrest or jail individuals simply for being, quotes, disfigured or visibly disabled. As the movement for accessibility and inclusion gained momentum, disability advocates increasingly took their fight into the public eye. During one demonstration, more than 1,000 protesters from 30 states gathered in Washington to protest delays in disability rights legislation. In one of the movement's most unforgettable moments, more than 60 activists abandoned their wheelchairs and mobility devices to crawl up the 83 stone steps of the U.S. Capitol. Those actions, along with countless others, helped lead President George H.W. Bush signing the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, landmark legislation prohibiting discrimination against people with disabilities in all areas of public life. The ADA later laid the groundwork for what became one of the most important civil rights decisions for people with disabilities in United States history, the Olmstead decision, which affirmed the right of people with disabilities to receive services in the most integrated setting possible and reinforced their right to live within the community. And this is only a fraction of what Americans built together, of what we can still build together. Take a closer look at what we are losing. Then remind our leaders who really call the shots. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from current issues of the Niagara Gazette. We read from the Niagara Gazette every Saturday at 11 a.m. Your reader has been Paul Denning. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the Dunkirk Observer. Following that at 1 o'clock, we have a reading of some of our Northtown Bee papers, including Amherst, Clarence, Cheektowaga, Lancaster, and Depew. And then at 2 o'clock, we have the Southtown Bees, which includes Orchard Park, the Hamburg Sun, the East Aurora, and West Seneca papers. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio Reading broadcasts daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to people who are blind or have a print disability and are The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability